Welcome to the Traitors, a Traitors podcast. My name is David Bloomberg, and I'm your host here for Season 1 of the Traitors Canada. The Traitors features deep dives into every episode of the multi-award-winning hit TV competition show, The Traitors, as well as interviews with contestants from the shows. For those of you who know me from my other podcasting, this is a bit different in that it's a recap and analysis rather than going through the format I use in looking at both Survivor and Big Brother players. This week, of course, we're here to discuss Episode 2, where we finally got some actual eliminations. But before we get to the episode, we have some news from the world of the Traitors this week. Normally, we do the news first before bringing on my guest for the week, but my guest for the week is the usual host for the Traitor, Matthew Keeley, and he's also going to give us the news.
Hooray! I'm back. I wasn't gone long. I didn't really stay away. I stayed away for one episode, and I've returned. Hooray!
Back from Traitors Tower.
Well, you see, there's so much news to talk about. I had to immediately come back and tell you what's going on.
A little inside baseball, or inside cricket, I guess, for British listeners. I don't know.
Cricket in Scotland? No.
Okay. Inside golf? I don't know.
Sure.
We wanted to, kind of ease into the transition with Matthew for episode 1, but our schedules wouldn't match up. So we just had that little intro, and then now here he is, easing.
Yes. And beyond this, I may not return for a while, but I'm here now.
That's right.
So I think we could go ahead and talk about the latest updates in TT News. Yet again, more awards success for the Traitors UK. The programme has won in the reality TV category at the Venice TV Awards. The ceremony took place 2 weeks after the famous Venice Film Festival and is a tribute to and celebration of television, which aims to increase national and international recognition for both producers and broadcasters who create high-quality output. The jury comprises TV professionals from all over the world, which makes this a particularly impressive win. Additionally, Claudia Winkleman is nominated for a C21 Format Award for her role as Traitors UK host. The C21s are the leading awards for the global format business, recognising creativity and excellence across a range of categories. Claudia is nominated in the Best Host of a Television Format category, alongside 5 other nominees, including Bradley Walsh, Kiki Palmer, and Lee Mack, amongst others. Sadly and surprisingly, the Traitors was not nominated in the competition reality format category, where another Studio Lambert production, Rise and Fall, was nominated. I've spoken about my feelings for Rise and Fall before on the podcast, and the fact that it, quite honestly, just wasn't that great makes this a very bizarre nomination to me. Anyway, the C21 Format Awards ceremony takes place pretty soon on Sunday, October the 15th, so we'll find out how both of them fare then. Next, all 3 media have announced a very exciting immersive experience for the Traitors. The event will be created by the Everywhere Group, an award-winning live experience company and leader in the immersive sector. The Everywhere Group has an exclusive UK development agreement for the Traitors format that will see them developing a live, playable social experience to immerse participants in the world of the Traitors.
I hope it's not too immersive. I mean, people getting murdered and stuff.
Who knows? I'm not ruling anything out. Nick Smith at All 3 Media International commented, "We are delighted to have partnered with the brilliant team at the Everywhere Group in order to create a faithful recreation of the dramatic world of the Traitors for fans to step into. The Everywhere Group have an exceptional track record for turning vivid on-screen brands into unforgettable live experiences. And what can be more unforgettable than being murdered by your nearest and dearest? The Everywhere Group have created other immersive experiences like Doctor Who Time Fracture, Peaky Blinders The Rise, and Great Gatsby New York, which have been big successes. Based on these, I imagine the Traitors experience will be more like a theatre show with interactive elements rather than an escape room or a murder mystery party. Maybe the audience help choose who to murder and banish, or maybe they help choose the traitors in the first place. I'm really excited to find out a lot more about this one. And of course, if it's in the UK, I will eventually be looking into attending.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it literally says in the promo, who can forget being murdered or whatever. So
yeah, they say these things.
now, I was at Doctor Who Time Fracture. I went to that in Wales.
Oh wow, fantastic!
Cardiff when it was there, and that was a lot of fun.
I would think you were lying if if you had introduced the game at this point, but you haven't introduced the game at this point. So I'm going to take your word for it.
Yes. I mean, you can also just look at my Twitter banner and see the row of Daleks that are there that I've had there from the Doctor Who. Was it museum, or was it technically called the museum there? I don't remember. But that's where the Time Fracture experience. I think it was Time Fracture. It was a long time ago, and wibbly wobbly. Yes. But it was. Who was the doctor then? Oh well, we're getting off. We're getting off track here a lot. But yes, it was. We went to Wales specifically. We went to Cardiff specifically for that. So if that is the news, we can actually move into what you just mentioned, the fan favorite Traitor game. Each of us will lie to one another once during the podcast. The lie, of course, you know all this, but I'm saying it for the listeners. The lie can be big or small about the traitors, yourself, or anything else, as long as it is a complete fabrication. However, we are looking for fake facts, not fake opinions. Like, I can't say I love the idea of being buried alive, which is kind of an obvious lie for just about anyone anyway. One modification that we discussed on the Australian season 2 finale is any lie involving numbers needs to be a decent size, like an order of magnitude. So I can't say I have 6 pages of notes for this episode when I only have 5. And actually I have 8 anyway. But I need to say I have, 80 pages. At the end of this episode, we'll put our traitor hunting skills to the test and see if we can detect the other person's lie. Are you ready to betray me?
I am ready to betray you, and I feel very attacked by your new rule.
As you should. As you should.
It's fine. I've taken it into account. I'm ready.
Okay. In that case, our game begins now. So no, it was not about Doctor Who. All right. Well, we begin episode 2, where episode 1 left off conveniently, with the traitors in the tower discussing who to murder. And I can't say murder as nicely as you do. So people are just going to have to deal with my, Midwest USA accent saying murder.
Yeah, I'll say it from time to time.
All right. This leads us to the usual breakfast walk-ins. 2 of the 3 traitors, Mike and Melissa B, were in the initial group. And Melissa B tells us she is changing the way she behaves because the other 2 told her she was so obvious the previous night. So now she has a mindset that she's a faithful. Crystal still thinks she's a traitor, but is wisely keeping it to herself. And to jump ahead a little bit, it occurs to me that that's the last we hear on that topic all episode. So I guess she did a good job.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Yeah, right at the start, there's still a little bit of suspicion around her, but it truly trails away. It just doesn't become a feature of the episode at all. So yeah, she seems to have escaped suspicion for now.
Yeah, or just 2 people we're going to talk about drew so much attention that everybody else put the others aside. For the breakfast, I like the way they bring in larger groups rather than trickling in 1 or 2 at a time. So that's good. It looks like a cold breakfast, so there won't be any fighting over the hash browns.
Yeah, and a very, very floral breakfast. Like it looked so Yeah, like green and fake plants everywhere. I was like, am I watching the Great British Bake Off? It was so twee. It was really weird set decoration. Nice, but not very sinister.
No, not very sinister. It's breakfast. Breakfast is a happy time, and until they find out who's been murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
Fierce is the first of the possible targets to walk in. Then the person I thought they'd target, Donna. So I guess I'm as good at predicting the future as she is. Uh, Kevin, Erica, and Mai are left. Now, Mai was my backup prediction, but she walks in before the other two.
Yeah.
Which means I know I'm going to be sad at the reveal. And also surprised because I thought Kuzi would be loyal to them both and protect them because they would protect her. But no, they killed Survivor 41 winner Erica.
Now, are you quite familiar with her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Very familiar with her. We'll get to that in a minute. But
Okay.
I was actually going to lie to you about which Survivor she won, but with the numbers change, I realized that would have had to be Survivor 410.
Yeah.
So,
I might have picked up on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, it doesn't surprise me that the traitors kept Kevin because he was already drawing attention as a possible traitor. So there was no reason to eliminate him. Erica, on the other hand, was doing exactly what she should, as I mentioned in the episode 1 podcast. And I was hoping she'd stay so we could see it in action because she was the first person to voice what I believe is the proper strategy for a faithful to have. She was building good relationships, making people think that she trusted them, including Kuzi. And so, yeah, I noted last week as a reminder that the real job of any faithful is not traitor hunting, but surviving with the knowledge of who the traitors are and then take them out at the end.
Yeah.
As she said, after being murdered, there's the game of figuring out the traitors, and then there's the game of self-preservation from banishment. And the thing is, both of those require a somewhat under-the-radar game. And anyone, this is, from Survivor 41, anyone who watched Survivor 41 knows that's how Erica won. Indeed, Melissa B. identified it somewhat, saying Erica's not gaming. And that's what we saw in the Survivor season as she made very quiet moves until near the end, when many of us saw through the edit at that time, and many people, including me, predicted she'd win in the lead up to the finale. So the key is, if you don't think Erica is gaming, she's gaming, especially early on. But they figured she'd never be a target for banishment, and which, by the way, I think is wrong. But they also knew that killing her off was a big statement. And I think that's one main reason they did it too. So what did you think of their decision?
Yeah, I got the impression that they realized Erica was probably just very clever and that she would do well in this game. So they might as well get rid of her as soon as possible. And like you say, they wanted to make a statement. It's this thing that we see in almost every season of the Traitors, that the Traitors get together and their first murder, they go for some either very big character or a very unexpected player.
Right.
So they're sort of following that pattern. You missed something very important at breakfast, and it was a line of dialogue which truly made me laugh. It was when Fierce came in and said, "I don't think I got murdered because everybody loves me."
Yes.
And I just had to write that down because it was really funny. But yes, Erica gone, kind of not that surprised in a way.
Yeah, and Kuzi wrote on Twitter something to the effect this morning or last night, I'm not sure, as we're recording this, something to the effect of, "You scared us, that's why you had to go."
Yeah.
So,
and I do wonder if, from a producer's perspective, I mean, presuming that the producers are quite hands off and they really do let the players do what they want to do, I wonder how annoyed they are that we've got this big reality TV winner And they've just killed her in the first episode. I wonder how annoyed they would be. I think they
And her
probably.
picture is in the logo, like the logo that they use for the Traitors Canada. Her picture is in it.
Yeah.
But that was something that we discussed. Spencer and I discussed last week. Was all this screen time being dedicated to Erica and Kevin and the other well-known, you might say celebrities,
Yeah.
as opposed, at the expense of the other people. And one reason was, well, because viewers already know these people, so it's a way to get them in. But the other was that I thought, yeah, it could be so because some of them are not long for this game.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Erica left to go cry into her $1 million, which by the way, since she is Canadian, her $1 million is worth more than the US $1 million, not because of the exchange rate, but because it's not taxable in Canada.
Oh, I see.
So she really did get $1 million, whereas US you get like 600.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, don't get me wrong, but yeah, so she's at home crying into that.
Yeah.
And were you going to say something?
I was going to just say that if you want to be on a reality TV competition show, you should just go to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Why stick around in the States? Go to Canada. Avoid that tax.
Well, yes, but also Canadian traders, the maximum prize is 100,000, and U.S. traders is 250,000. At least
That's
the
true.
first one was. So,
well, go on Survivor.
Well, there is no Canadian Survivor, so that's why the U.S. finally started allowing Canadians in. Was that for a long time Canadians could not play Survivor anywhere. There was no Canadian Survivor. There was a Canadian Big Brother, but they could watch U.S. Survivor. They just couldn't play in it. And then finally, they started letting them in, and almost right away they started winning. So they actually they had one Canadian player in an earlier season, but he was someone who had moved to the U.S. He was a hockey player, and then they had Canadian players in 41, and Erica won. Then they had Canadian players in 42, and a Canadian won again. And then they had no Canadian players in 43. They were like, nope, we're done with this.
No more.
No more.
Do you have anything else about breakfast?
Kevin told us he had been talking too much and needed to go under the radar himself. Now, as I was watching that, I was like, I don't know that it's possible for Kevin to go under the radar, especially now. But looking to the future again, yeah, actually it was.
Yeah. Towards the end of breakfast, the host comes in and suggests that the traitors were probably sleeping really well last night, and that the faithful, it was like she was trying to give them a clue. She said the faithful will be worried and stressed and anxious and they won't sleep all night. And I sort of thought, is she telling them to just look around the table at who looks awful, who looks really bad? Can you imagine? I think Matthew's a faithful. He looks terrible today.
But I was thinking it would be the opposite, because the traitors are the one who have to give up sleep to go to the tower.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they stay up later filming, so I guess that balances it out. Basically, everyone's tired. Everyone looks terrible.
Yeah. So, all right. So she immediately takes, she being Corrine, immediately from breakfast starts the challenge, and says, okay, I need 6 volunteers. And we meet Melissa A for essentially the first time. I think she was on screen briefly. I knew there had to be a Melissa A because there was a Melissa B.
Yeah.
But and then we also, I had forgotten that we met Mickey, that he was the Amazing Race Canada winner, but I was reminded of that. And so then they head off. And on the drive there, Rick, for the other players, Rick talks about how he tried some traitor hunting by asking Colin why he thinks Erica would have been targeted. And he caught Colin contradicting what he'd previously said because in response, he said Erica would have been the last person he would have chosen. But previously, he had said he didn't want someone to win who didn't need it. Now, personally, I don't really think this is a contradiction. But I mean, it's just to say she's the last person I would have chosen. It doesn't literally mean she was last that he would have gotten out. It just meant not right now. But two of the traitors are in the car with Rick, and they're encouraging this kind of thing. They're like, yeah, I agree. You know, they're completely throwing Colin, the bus driver, under his own bus.
Yeah. And it goes on to form such a crucial element of the whole episode now.
Yeah.
But I was also confused. I thought, have I missed something? Like to me, this whole thing completely spirals out of control, which again the traitors are really enjoying. But I couldn't really pin down why it was such a big deal and why everyone cared about it so much. So I found so much of the episode and the banishment quite confusing, actually.
I think it's just like the first banishment, and I've used this example before, like the first vote in a mafia game, for example. Nobody has any idea, usually.
Yeah.
I mean, New Zealand was a different story, but usually nobody has any idea, and so they're looking for anything. And it can be a slip of the tongue, and but this is, he contradicted himself. And it's like, well, I mean, I suppose you can catch a traitor in a lie of this sort, maybe, but it just doesn't. I mean, and it does go along with what he had said, which I have thoughts about that later. I will echo Kuzi's thoughts about that later. But, he had said, let's get rid of the people, or I don't want someone with a lot of money to win. And they get rid of the $1 million winner. Yeah. So it does go along with that. But yeah, it's like you said, much ado about nothing. But a lot of the votes are much ado about nothing on the show.
Exactly.
So they move into the challenge, which is one that is familiar to many of us who have seen previous seasons.
Yes.
The 6 volunteers are put into graves. Each person dug up is worth $1,500. So as I mentioned last week, a much lower possible prize pool than the first challenge, where they dumped 20% of the possible prize pool right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Kareen explains that the others are split in 3 teams, so 2 buried people each. The buried people can communicate by walkie-talkies and provide clues. Each reads off the first clues to send the team to their first stop on the map. Then they start giving their second clue, which is in the form of a shield with some images on it. So those shields are on other gravestones that are not where they're buried. And then they use that information to get themselves to the actual graveyard and determine which they should dig up, which the part about digging up was a little confusing because there were only 6 graves.
Yeah.
And there were 6 people in them. So if you dug up the wrong one, is it really that big of a deal? But okay, whatever. Mickey is released first, then each of everyone on the red and green teams, and the blue team is nowhere to be found. So Donna and I think it was Trevon have to be rescued for no money for a grand total of $6,000.
Yeah. I didn't know that this was the challenge this week. I don't know if they showed a preview of it at the end of episode 1. They show you little clips of what's coming. And I've said this before in the podcast. I never watch those sections. I actually just stop because I don't really want to see what's going to happen next week. Like, I don't need an incentive to watch. I'm going to watch anyway. So yeah, they're being buried alive. Like you said, we've seen this before in the Traitors. And it's funny because just today, so I work in TV development, and just today I was watching so many clips of I think it's alt the show called Fear Factor in
Mhm.
the States. Does that still is that still on TV?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan was the host, and now he makes a lot more
Oh.
money by
Saying insane
just
things on podcasts.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. That'll do it. Yeah, that sums it up.
I didn't realize he that's was part of his background. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was watching Fear Factor clips of people being buried alive um and being in cages underwater with tiny holes to breathe through, and they're reviving it for UK TV, which is why I was watching clips of it, just like Big Brother has come back to UK TV. It's been
Hmm.
gone for 5 years, but it's just started up again. Uh, so it was then funny to watch the episode tonight, and I thought, oh, more people being buried alive. I've spent a lot of time today watching this as well. Uh, I'm going to be dreaming about it tonight. It's not looking good. My favorite part was our host. She was describing the task to them, and she used the phrase "ensconced in your tombs," and I just thought, "Wow, highbrow, ensconced, weighty." So I like that. I thought good, top-notch vocabulary.
Yeah. I thought that these coffins looked a little bigger than some of the ones we'd previously seen. It looked like they had a little bit more room, like
Yeah,
the lid
yeah,
wasn't quite right on top of their faces. But it's still being buried alive.
yes.
Um, although for a TV show, so it's
It's
you're going to be
yes.
rescued.
There's about an inch of soil.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not too bad.
right. Um, so in answer to your earlier question, did I know that this was coming? They had clips, and I didn't remember if they said next time or this season, but
Okay.
the graveyard was certainly featured in, all of them.
Okay.
So yeah, we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So they get everybody out on the drive back. Donna tells her car that she believes she's on the banishment list and that Colin is the other one. Considering that she was told last episode and literally wept to everyone about it, it doesn't take a psychic to figure that one out.
No, you take it back. She's psychic, and I won't hear another word about it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it is an interesting. It's an interesting. Well, you're in TV development, and usually it's show don't tell. Uh,
Yeah.
in this case, it was just tell flat out. Like literally, we're just going to have Donna tell us right off the bat who is going to be in trouble in the banishment room. And I mean, they do some showing after that. Well, a lot of showing after, but it was almost like this is why you're not going to get any clips of anyone else. It is just these two.
Right.
And so Donna says it, and there you go.
Yeah. I also someone in the car. I didn't spot who it was. Someone in the car said, "I swear on my children, I'm a faithful," and it made me think of you because I think you hate when players say stuff like this. Is that right?
Well, Colin is the one who has repeatedly said, "I swear on my children."
Okay.
I don't remember if he was in that car or no, he
Someone
couldn't
said
have
it
been.
somewhere.
Yeah, he said it repeatedly through the episode.
Okay. Okay.
With sunglasses on, with sunglasses off, with he said it repeatedly. And I mean it's fine to say. It's a little early to say. And the problem is, for anyone who hasn't heard me talk about this before, or as a refresher if you have, the problem is if let's say that he is recruited later
Yeah.
and wants to tell people he's still not a traitor, is he still going to swear on his children?
Yeah.
If not, it's a giveaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
If so, then it never meant anything to begin with anyway, which it shouldn't. You're in a game. Swear on whatever the heck you need to swear on. I don't care. But it's just it's silly. For that reason, no one should believe him one way or another.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's they are just words, and anyone can say anything.
Right.
Yeah, people all the time in this game say I'm 100% faithful.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so what
Right.
A
You'll
traitor, a
find out.
traitor's
You'll
job
find
is to
out.
lie.
Right. You'll find out when if you banish me. You'll see. You'll see.
Yeah,
You're going to look silly.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Now we meet Leroy the firefighter, or at least I think we're meeting him for the first time. As Rick continues his anti-Colin crusade. Leroy feels like Rick is pushing too hard, which he is, but we've already been told who the two are that are going to be focused on. So, Fierce is on board with going after Colin because Colin had told both Donna and Dom that he'd heard their names and he said it in very similar words. But it turns into this whole confusing mess because Colin denies it. And so he gets mad and says, go get Donna. And they eventually get to the point that Donna had said Colin was telling Dom his name was going around, but Dom was like, no, he'd heard Colin bringing up her name. So she misunderstood and caused this whole thing. Now, I would understand if there was confusion between Dom and Donna because their names are close enough that you could mishear one.
Yeah.
But this is Donna hearing it. So it's not like she's going to confuse her own name with Dom. So she couldn't even get this right as it was told to her. And Fierce, worried about being targeted now for even bringing this up. As I'm watching this, I'm really thinking the blowback will be and should be on Donna. And, Colin's like, I'm done trying to save you. And it just, yeah, I don't this whole thing was just, I think it was a spinoff of what happened with Kevin in the first episode where people were talking about, oh, Kevin came to me and said, he trusts me and wants to work with me in very similar words. And so I think, that was already in Donna's mind, perhaps and so she's like, oh, look, Colin's doing the same thing with me and Dom. And it's like, no, you just totally misunderstood.
Yeah. I was confused by the whole thing, really.
Yes.
I it was just a sort of series of people saying, I said this and I didn't mean that, and I misheard this and I got their name wrong, and go and ask her what she really said. And it's just so trivial. But already I could see, okay, this is what Banishment Room is going to be about tonight. This is where we're being led. And I really laughed again at Fierce for saying to some of the other guys, we could be the first Traitors franchise that gets a traitor out in the first banishment. Obviously, this was filmed pre-New Zealand,
Yes.
but they didn't know that. So and how wrong they turn out to be, of course. Anyway,
yes. Now, part of the confusion also was that interspersed with the argument, there was a clip where Colin was in a discussion with Melissa A, and Rick pushed him. There were a couple of different clips. I think it was Rick, and this time it was Kevin another time. But I think it was Rick pushes him to take his sunglasses off so he can look her in the eye and swear on his kids' lives. And then it's like, wait, but wasn't Colin inside arguing? The placement of this clip was very strange. It's like, just tell one story and then you can tell the sunglasses story separately. You don't have to intersperse them. So then that's about it. That, there aren't really many more interesting conversations to be had.
Yeah.
So we're headed into the round table. And it looks like, surprise, surprise, either Donna or Colin will be banished. I'm not sure going into it why people would side against Colin when it's been proven that Donna was the one who was wrong or lying. But either way, the two people that I thought would be in trouble coming into this, Melissa B and Kevin, have avoided the spotlight.
Yes.
So let's hear it for big personalities who, let other people hide.
Although part of me did, every now and then in other versions of the Traitors, there are cases where there are two, we think we know where
Mhm.
banishment's going, and then sort of halfway through the discussion, someone's name is thrown in, and we get this
Yes.
complete swerve away. So part of me thought maybe someone will bring up Melissa B again and we'll divert back to her. But no, it just she's never mentioned at all. The discussion is pretty narrow, and it just goes exactly where we think it's going to go.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, well, if this were Australia season 2, it would take such a left turn that no one would see it coming.
Yeah, but Sarah wasn't there.
Except the difference is if it were Australia season 2, they would have started looking at Melissa B and then gone after one of the other ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Well, Colin opens the round table and says, look, I know I'm a target, and it's all Donna's fault, and tries to throw suspicion on her, as he should. She responds by questioning why he would want to help her when he didn't even know her. And my immediate thought is, well, there's no reason a traitor would want to help you. And so why, I don't see how this accusation back really helps things. But before I could even type my notes on that, Kuzi says the same thing. And Donna's response is, well, I'm gullible. I just want to take that in for a second. Donna, the supposed psychic, admits that she's gullible. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that there for now.
Yeah, I spotted that as well. And even the psychic or not, I thought that's a terrible thing to say in this game.
Yes.
Don't admit to that.
I mean, it's good for the traders. The traders are like, well, we're not going to bother with her. But the rest of the people might be like, well, even if we can't get out a trader, at least we got to get out the gullible person.
Yeah, unless you're bluffing, unless you're deliberately, your technique, your tactic is to portray yourself as the simple, whimsical person who doesn't really know what's happening, but actually you've got a secret devious plan. But I don't think that's what Donna's doing.
I don't think she has a secret devious plan.
No, not here.
There's no Erica in Donna. No.
Nuts.
All right. Well, Mai brings up that she'd heard Colin's names multiple times from multiple people, even though she didn't know where it started. So this reminded me of something, and I want to use this opportunity to bring it up because I found that this happened a lot in my old office before I retired. And I suspect it happens in a lot of workplaces. I would hear a rumor about somebody, and then I'd hear the same rumor from someone else and someone else. Now, it might seem, this is confirming evidence. This must be true. I'm hearing it from multiple people. And many people take it that way. Well, I heard it from multiple people. It must be true. But I would take the extra step. I would track it back. Oh, who did you hear that from? And in almost every case, all those different branches went back to the same origin. So it was one person saying something and spreading it to other people. And then others started hearing the same rumor from multiple people. So they figured that must be right. And then they spread it. But no, it was the same rumor. And it was usually false and usually spread by my secretary who never met a rumor she didn't believe and pass on. And after I figured it out, I would put the kibosh on it and, tell people like, no, stop it. That's not true, which did not make me popular with the rumor mill or my old secretary. I had to, one time I had to literally yell via speakerphone at a guy who worked for me. And he was in an office half the state away. He was in a field office. I was his manager. And I had directed him to stop spreading a false rumor. And in under a day, I heard that he was telling this rumor to other people who worked like 50 feet away from me. So I sat there on the phone, my door open so that everyone in the office could hear me doing this. So they knew exactly where I stood, just reaming him out over speakerphone. So yes, that is my thought on spreading false rumors. And I think The same thing could easily happen in a situation like the Traitors, which is why I bring it up, not just to, tell a story. Um, but the difference is you don't have time to track it back. And you maybe also don't have the inclination to do it because if someone else is a target, great, it's not you. And also,
Yeah.
if you start asking questions, people are going to be like, why are they asking questions? And the target could shift to you.
If there's a rumor out there, jump on it. If it keeps eyes off you, it also reminds me of a situation in Traitors Australia season one. And I don't think this is a spoiler. I don't think I'm ruining anything here.
At this point,
Skip ahead 30 seconds if you really care. With one of the players called Olivia, who claimed that another player called Jack sort of whispered something to her after a challenge about who he was going to murder that night. And it actually turns out he didn't really say that at all. But Olivia tells so many different, and it just mushrooms, and it's all anyone is talking about, and it results in this poor guy Jack. I think he's the first person of the season banished, all based on this wild rumor that travels around, and he gets banished and is like, "I'm a faithful, and I don't know what you're all talking about." Um, the weird thing was, though, that Olivia also wasn't a traitor. So it's not like she was actively trying to sabotage him. It was a very strange situation.
Yeah, I don't remember specific names, so maybe you're lying to me about them here. But I do remember the situation, and I think that's happened several times in that season where people would, and I think it was her often, like her mishearing things and then spreading it around as if it was true.
Yeah.
And eventually people are like, why does this keep coming back to you? Why does this keep happening? And she just, I don't know. She misheard things. She saw things that weren't there. And it was like, but I mean, it's, I mean, other things have happened to, get things started. Like I would murder for a cup of coffee type of thing. And, that type of thing. It's like, oh, no, I just, people can hear or mishear things all the time. Yeah. So next up speaking of people using their words against them, people did the same to Colin because of what we talked about earlier. He said he'd rather see someone win who needs the money. Now, Melissa A. and Kevin aren't happy with that. Kevin, fully understand. He is a professional poker player, high stakes. He won, Canadian Big Brother. He would be viewed as having money. Melissa A., I looked up her what her job is, and it was like teacher. And I'm thinking, well, that's not someone who makes a lot of money. But then it went into that she also started her own company. So maybe she would be viewed by some as having money, or maybe she just thought it wasn't fair and it didn't matter how much money she personally had. And this issue has been discussed since the early days of Survivor. I remember there was a dentist on Survivor, and he at one point foolishly talked about having sports cars. And people are like, well, why would we ever give him the $1 million? He already has money.
Yeah.
And I fall into the camp that it should not matter. You're playing a game. Yes, there is a prize at the end of the game, but you're playing the game. It should be based on what happens in that game. It shouldn't be like, oh, this person needs the money more. Kind of some of the things we heard from certain people in the Traitors US reunion. But it should be based on what you do in the game. However, I also say Colin never should have said that.
Yeah. I mean, the point of the game is to find traitors. Well, no, it's the point of the point of the game is to find them. The as a technique of winning, that's maybe not wise to do very early on. But yeah, so I don't know if paying attention to that is I kind of understand maybe as you get towards the end game
Hmm.
and you're faced with a really tough choice of taking a chance on someone being a fit
Hmm.
right at the end, and maybe then you'd think, well, I don't really think this person's a traitor, but they might be, and they're probably not going to be that upset if I get rid of them
Hmm.
because they have lots of money, so I'll do it now. But yeah, throughout the game, it's probably a bit unfair or unhelpful to use
Right,
that.
right. Yeah, and I was thinking for the U.S., I was thinking of some of the people who lost, but as you spoke, I was reminded that the winner, well, let's face it, everyone should know who the winner of U.S. Traders Season 1 is by now, but the winner used it against Ari because he is, in fact, very wealthy, and
Yeah.
she used it with the two people who lost to try and to help convince them to take him out.
Yes.
So, yeah, if you have people, it's a tool that you can use if you're close enough to people, if you're close to the end game. Don't just come in and announce it straight out of the gate
Yeah.
because you're going to get yourself killed,
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking. Then the round table continues. Mary sides with Colin, but then Rick continues his anti-Colin crusade. I could have just cut and paste that like throughout my whole notes. Rick continues his Kuzi made me laugh, and this is something I referenced earlier, by saying she doesn't think Colin is a traitor because he's too careless with what he's been saying. So it's like, I mean, it was basically like, you're just too dumb to be a traitor. You know? And it's true. You know, I mean, not the dumb part, the too careless part. Like there are certain things he would not have, I would hope he would not have said if he were a traitor. But the funny thing is, we've seen on several other seasons, you might have thought that okay, this person should be ruled out because obviously they wouldn't say that if they were a traitor, but the faithful still go for it. Like, you know, they just gang right up on it, like fruit flies on a banana, and go after their own people for dumb reasons like that. So I don't know if you had anything else for the roundtable before the voting.
uh, Not before the vote. No, I just had one silly thing about what Rick says when he votes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. And that's where it starts. Rick votes Colin. I don't remember exactly what he said.
He votes for Colin and says, "I love you all," and I just
Oh,
think
yes.
I just when these moments, you think maybe at the end of the season you've grown really
Right.
close to these people, but I'm like, it's you've known these people a day, maybe. I
Yeah.
love you all. Have you spoken to them all yet? Like I don't even
Ah,
know their names yet. So it
I
just makes
did.
me laugh
Yeah.
when people say these
It's
things.
it's funny because I didn't write that down, but I did think of the same thing when he said that. I'm like, I love you all. Okay. I mean, on Survivor, sometimes we'll see, you know, in the first 3 days, there's some intense bonding, but you're on an island with no food, no sleep, and these people are all you have. Even then, I think 3 days is a pretty short time, although we've seen it on the current season of Survivor, you know, where people are like, oh, you know, I can't bear to vote for this person. And it's like you've known them for 3 days.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I love you all after one day is, I mean, maybe Rick just loves everyone.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why.
I guess it's just the intensity of
Right.
being on a TV show. Even again, the Big Brother just began again in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
and the first night, the launch night, when all the housemates go into the house. I can't remember the scenario, but there's some immediate task they've got to do or a mission, and one of the housemates stands up and goes, "Well, guys, we're all friends." And I think you literally just met them moments ago. But I get people, they feel excited that they're there and they've got something in common already and they're on a show together. So I guess you get carried away.
Yeah. Yeah. Not the first time I would have heard someone say, oh, yeah, we're all friends here. We're all, I'm trying to think of the scenario where I heard it, but I can't now. It's, you know, a symptom of watching too much reality TV. They, you know, some of the things blur together, but yeah, I've, you know, seen similar things like, well, we're all friends, so we'll do that. And it's like, no, you literally just, I think it was actually now that I'm thinking, I think it was the first episode of Survivor this season too. Like a tribe gets, you know, onto the boat. And in the first challenge, they're like, well, you know, we're all friends and we're going to do this. And it's like, I mean, you've been hanging out without speaking to each other for like a week, but no, you're not friends, like you said. All right. So after Rick, votes Colin, Crystal votes Donna. Mary doesn't trust her vote, but goes with Colin. And we could name off everybody else, but it's a landslide because Colin gets all the rest of the votes except for Kuzi, Dazila, and Gurpure. And I hope I pronounced that right, and I apologize if I didn't. So along the way, Trevon tells us his thought was if it comes to two people, he'll just flip a coin. Dom says in voting, I have to go with the consensus decision. And both are right. There is no need to stand out in any way. And I think it also mostly explains what happened to Colin. He was too visible. He was too disruptive. Traitor or not, he was a distraction. Personally, I would have probably voted Donna because the whole kerfuffle really did seem to be her fault.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, like we said earlier, she doesn't seem to be very useful either in terms of figuring out what's going on since she admitted she was gullible.
Yeah. I also just remembered, I didn't write this down, but as you were speaking, I think it was Mary when she votes for Colin and she says, like she turns over the slate with his name and says, "Oh, I don't even think it's you. I don't really think you're a traitor." And I think, well, why are you writing his name down then? Don't. And I understand that they vote in numbers and you vote politically, but don't admit it. Don't write someone's name down and then openly say, "I don't actually think it's you." Like, I just think, just don't speak.
Yeah, but that's something we've seen too on multiple recent seasons. It's like, well, I don't think it's you, but I'm still voting you. And it's just like, yeah, I'm sure that makes them feel better as they're kicked out of the game. So yeah, Colin is banished, and of course, tells them that he was a faithful. Rick tells us he'll go visit Colin to apologize in person. Mary gets upset that she went with the mob, but there wasn't really anything she could do other than, like you said, not talk. And so I do think she's being a little hard on herself for the vote itself. Corrine tells them that they should all consider who is telling them the wrong information, which makes me wonder if this is going to rebound on Rick because, as I mentioned, cut and paste.
Yeah.
Rick continues his crusade against Colin. So then we cut to chatting at the manor after the round table.
Yes.
Now, May makes a very good point that they all had someone else's name in mind, but they worried that if they said it and that person really was a traitor and they didn't have numbers, they could become a target. Yeah, she's right. Exactly right. I mean, she is 100% right.
Yeah, it's she's right, and it must be frustrating to want to have intuitions and have gut feelings or have really good reasons to vote for someone, but you have to fight that instinct in order to survive. So she's pointing out something that's correct, but to actually follow that advice is probably not actually a very good idea tactically.
Yes. Yeah, and we've seen it in previous seasons. Even if you're sure, you have to round up the numbers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just become, this voice, one of a few voices. And if you're right, well, then maybe you're murdered next.
Yeah.
Or
and you have to be particularly careful if you're a traitor and you want to turn on one of your fellow traitors.
Yes.
And we've seen that go awry before in other seasons.
Exactly.
If you want to turn on one of your own, you really need to be sure it's going to work. Otherwise, it's incredibly awkward afterwards.
Yes. Very awkward tower meetings later.
Yes.
So then Mike says, "Hey, everyone, I'm not really a magician."
So weird.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, what? What is he going to tell them about the CIA thing? Is he going to, what? I don't understand. No, he's just kidding. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and then he whips out a pack of cards and starts doing card tricks while telling us that deceiving people is what he does. So he feels like he's basically running things there.
Yeah, I this was strange in so many ways. I was really just confused. Firstly, I naively thought he was about to say, I'm a traitor and I can't do this. I'm leaving the game, and off he goes. I thought, is he about to just quit? And then I yeah, he said, "Oh, I'm a magician." He does his trick, and then in his interview says something about, yeah, as a magician, what I do is misdirect
Mhm.
people. And I thought, why is you showing them a card trick misdirecting it? If anything, I just thought you're kind of drawing attention to yourself here.
Yeah.
That's a really bad idea. Just be quiet. You're doing
Yeah.
really well so far. Don't ruin it.
I, yeah, he's definitely got a little bit of Australian Sam in him there.
Yeah.
That he can't just be a traitor. He has to gloat about being a traitor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he'll ever go full Sam, and you never want to go full Australian Sam.
No. No.
You do want to go full New Zealand Sam. You do not want to go full Australian Sam.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just so weird, and it wasn't it all. Maybe it was just his way of transitioning into card tricks, but. Why would you say I don't understand? I don't understand it at all, unless it was some weird out of context clip that we got.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe. Very, very strange in the episode, though.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of Mike, it's time for the traders to gather in the tower. Kuzi wants to take out someone who will never be seen as a traitor and names Trevon. However, she also notes that someone on Mike and Melissa's team wasn't good enough because they didn't get the money. So they name Dr. Nazila and add that she'll never be thought of as a traitor either, which is likely because I didn't even remember who they were talking about.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even when they showed pictures, I still had to go back and I'm like, who is this? Oh, it was the lady in red at the round table. Okay, now I vaguely remember who that is. Mike is thinking, oh, yeah, people may try harder if they believe players are being targeted for not being as good in missions. Yeah, that's great, but the traders don't give a reason when they eliminate someone. It's not like, Kareen comes out and says, Nazila has been murdered because she was too slow in the mission.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see that. And then they bring up Mickey as being too lovable and laid back. So I have my thoughts. Who do you think it will be?
I actually have no idea because I'm going to be honest, I still don't know who
Okay,
they all
Donna.
are. I just have a general thought about their tactic though. So we see this quite often in various versions of the traitors that when deciding on who to murder, they do exactly what you just described. They think who's never going to be banished, who does everybody kind of love, and who's not going to leave the game any other way. But I sort of wonder if that's not always a great idea because I sort of think, don't you also want to keep some of those people around until the end? Like, I know it's only episode 2, but if you're thinking long term, you're thinking about the end game already. You really want to be left with some gullible people, some nice people, some quite naive players, because they're the people you want to be able to fool the best at the end. So I just wonder.
So you're saying Donna's making it all the way to the end.
I mean, psychics don't generally do well in the show, but maybe she's worth keeping around. Yeah.
So, I mean, she also hasn't, as far as we've seen, gone around. I mean, she has said that she's a psychic, but she's not Chloe going around making huge proclamations about things that immediately are proven wrong.
Yeah.
And, so, yeah, she's a very different type of person, or a different type of personality, I would say.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. You want to keep gullible people. But I don't think gullible necessarily equates to someone who they would never believe is a traitor.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the same thing, sure.
Although there's a huge overlap. That Venn diagram is close to a circle, just not quite exactly a circle.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that they believe Nazila is gullible. I mean, she is a dentist or oral surgeon, but I also don't. They seem. I mean, from the 2 seconds of conversation, the traders at least seem pretty sure no one will ever think she's one of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, continue in letting me know your vast prediction here.
I, I'll go the same as you then. Well, I think this is what you're saying. I'll go with Nazila.
Oh no, I wasn't going to go with Nazila.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking it wouldn't be Nazila because we've seen so little of her.
Sure, although I feel like sometimes that happens.
Yes, it definitely does. It happens more on the Traitors than like on Survivor.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's someone they're just not getting a lot of material out of, they're not necessarily going to give them a lot of camera time. And so it could be Nazila. I was thinking they'd want to make another big statement and go with Mickey, another reality TV winner.
Yeah, okay.
But who knows? So we'll see.
Producers might step in and go, stop getting rid of the big names. We need them. Can you just wait a while, please?
Although Mickey himself, when he was introducing himself in the car, was like, I don't know if anyone remembers me. So, and the other thing is, winning the Amazing Race. I mean, I've known some of the people who've won the Amazing Race. And yes, it takes brains, but it's not necessarily the same type of brains as in a strategic social game.
Yeah.
You can be a social pariah and win the Amazing Race. Alliances are good. Sometimes they will definitely help you win, but you don't have to form them the same way you do on games like this. So, all right. And with that, we head to the cliffhanger. And we'll see where it goes. Now, I can tell you, well, you may already know this, but I can tell listeners where this podcast is going to be going, because before we finish up, I want to let everyone know we have a great planned lineup of guests for the coming weeks, including a former player from the U.S. Traitors season, a fan favorite player from the recent second Australian season, one of the winners of the New Zealand season, and several friends of mine who have been following or covering reality TV for many years, one of whom goes back. He was an associate editor of mine on my website over a decade ago. So he's been following, all of them have been following reality TV for a long, long time. So that's what people can look forward to as we progress through the game and through the weeks here. Now, normally at this point in the podcast, I would have my guest talk about and promote whatever they're doing. Now, you're obviously more of a known quantity here, Matthew. But since you're mostly taking time off from the podcast, what else are you up to?
I am up to, I'm a writer as well. So you can follow me on Instagram at Matthew J. Keeley. It's the same on X, so you can see what kind of things I'm writing. I've had some poetry published very recently, which is very nice. And I travel around and take pictures of nice places, and so you can look at them and go, oh wow, look at Matthew, he's in a nice place. I've been in some TV studios recently, actually, so If you're listening to this, you must like TV. So if you look at my Instagram, you can see some
Hmm.
cool TV sets that might be quite recognizable, especially to people in the UK. Uh, and I'll also take this chance to just give a couple of shout outs. So big thank you to Helga Knoll. Helga Knoll donated to the podcast coffee page. Helga lives in Vienna, in Austria, and is currently watching season 1 of The Traitors Australia and has discovered the podcast and has been listening along. So thank you very, very much to Helga. That was lovely. Really appreciate that. Uh, Australia season 1 is, I've said this often in the podcast, I think it's my favorite version of The Traitors. So I'm very excited for Helga to be watching it. I'm strangely jealous of Helga to be watching it for the first time. I want to go back. I want to experience it again afresh. And
Yeah,
another,
it was definitely, and I've said this before too, definitely the most strategic
yes,
version. The US was my favorite for not necessarily game reasons, but for personalities, which for people who know me are like, wait, is that you, David? Hello? Because you always favor the game over personalities. But some things are bigger than the game,
yes,
and the winner of the U.S. was. But yes, Australia. Had it not been for that, I think Australia season 1 would also be my favorite. I really enjoyed New Zealand as well, but I almost view New Zealand as a different game because so many people knew each other. But
yeah, yeah, a different dynamic, definitely.
mhm.
I have another quick thank you to Magnus on X. Magnus has been in touch a couple of times, but recently sent me a little factoid, which I didn't realize. In my New Zealand recap episode, I suggested introducing a new element to the show. I said I thought it would be interesting if the murdered and banished faithfuls are filmed as they're told the truth about who the traitors really are, and we can see the reactions maybe in the cars as they leave. But Magnus tells me that this actually does happen in the traitors Norway. So they do this thing where they film people who've been eliminated finding out the truth. And apparently in Norway, you can watch that online
Hmm.
on maybe on social media. So you do get to see people's reactions. So I actually think I was being psychic there. I think I picked it up from the ether. So I should be
Yes,
signed
likely.
up as a Traitors
Yes,
cast member because they love psychics on this show. So, and I know you too as well,
yes,
David. So,
yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah, and for normally we save this till the end, but for anyone who wants to be like Helga, they can drop a few bucks or a few whatever it is in whatever country you're in at coffee.com/Matthew Keeley, and that's KO-FI for coffee. I was actually trying to find an app. I was like, oh, there must be an app. And as far as I could tell, there is no actual coffee app. Although there is an app called Buy Me a Coffee, but it doesn't seem to be. It's almost like they're trying to scam. I won't say scam. It could be legit. Maybe they had the same idea at the same time. But yes, it's not the same thing. So,
yeah.
all right. I wish I had ended the Traitor game before you told me that story about Magnus, because now I'm wondering if that was the lie, but I didn't. So I'm just going to have to deal with it. Did you, in fact, lie to me?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, I lied to you too. Uh,
Excellent. That feels weird to say, but
yes.
that's great.
Yes.
Sometimes people forget. So it's good that you
Yes.
lied.
Um, I'll try to guess yours first,
Okay.
but I'm going to be like Mary. I believe that I am wrong, but I think it has to do with the fear factor stuff.
Okay.
I do not think Fear Factor is coming back in the UK. I believe that you lied about that.
When I said I was watching clips of Fear Factor for a long time today, I was telling the truth. However, I did lie. It is not being revived in the UK.
Yes.
Damn you.
Yes.
No. I thought I would do I thought I snuck it into a truth and you wouldn't notice. Oh, too good. You're too good at this. So I'm so annoyed. I told you lots of other little stories along the way
You
to throw
did.
you off. I thought, haha, he'll think this is the lie.
Yeah. And some of them I was like, oh, it could be, but I don't know.
Uh, well, well done,
All
I
right.
suppose.
Do you have any idea what my lie was?
Uh, yes. And I'll pull a Mary as well and say I'm probably wrong. I had a couple of guesses, but then I'm going to go for the most recent thing that you said that I think might be a lie. You were talking about future guests on the podcast, and you mentioned that one of the New Zealand winners was coming on, and I don't think you've told me that before. So that makes me think that might be a lie. Is that a lie?
It's not, and I did tell you.
What? I, I knew you told me about an Australia contestant and a US contestant, but the New Zealand thing completely passed me by. Oh my goodness.
I even told you. I said, I said that they told me I really enjoy your strat chat. You're the best in the biz. And I said, I'm going to have to change all of my social media for that.
Oh, you did? I just forgot who it was. I remember
Yes.
that message. Oh, for goodness sake. I thought it was someone else. Oh well, that's
So if it wasn't that one, I'll give you,
okay.
what would it have been?
Here were my two other options. My two other options were you said there's never been there is no Canada's I think you said there's no Canada's Survivor, and I wondered if that
Mhm.
was a lie because actually there was at some point. Uh, and then the story about someone at your work, I thought maybe you lied about their name or their gender. So those
All
were
true.
um,
All true.
okay.
And things that I threw in. I mean, they were good. I threw them in on purpose. I mean, I threw them in because they were good topics, but also I knew that they might distract you.
Of
I
course you
also thought
did.
that the Canadian, also thought you might say the Canadian income tax was a lie, but no, that was true too.
I believe
I
that. Yeah.
I flipped the script on Erica because I reversed the situation with my own predictions about Erica back in her season. Nobody saw it coming.
Oh, you know, I actually did notice that. I was going to say you were talking about Erica, and I was going to say, oh, is that the one that nobody thought was going to win? And just as I was thinking it, you then went on to say, and I knew she was going to win, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, I'm thinking of someone else then.
No.
I should have spoken up.
Yeah. They gave her such a hidden edit that I think she got more screen time in her one episode here than she did in the first half of the season on Survivor. And because of that, literally on my podcast, in my finale predictions, I explained a path to winning for 5 of the 6, the final 6, and said, there is no way Erica can win, so I will not even discuss her. And then went
And
on
she
to
won.
the others. Yes.
Oh man, I'm so mad at myself. See, this is what happens when I don't host an episode. I lose all of my skills. It's gone.
I got yours and you didn't even get mine on 3 tries. So,
Man.
oh man. All right. Well, there we have it for episode 2. But of course, anyone who wants to reach out and let us know what they think, I am all over social media and reality TV podcasting. I, mentioned earlier that I podcast about both Survivor and Big Brother on the Rob Has a Podcast network, with the name of the show being Why Blank Lost. Those come out every weekend. There should be, they're both shows are going on right now. So, I'll get 2 podcasts out in the same weekend for why each player on Survivor and US Big Brother, now I have to clarify, lost. You can also find my various accounts at Linktree, at Linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE in Linktree. Or you could find me on most text-based social media like Twitter and Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg, and on the video platforms TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg TV. Because Threads is connected to Instagram, I'm at David Bloomberg TV there. Most of my time is on Twitter. I know you call it X. I will continue to call it Twitter forever because X is a dumb name. Speaking of TikTok and the other video sites, I post 3 or 4 reality TV short videos on all of them every day. Right now, I've been posting 4 because I have so many to post. They're mostly US Big Brother and Survivor, but I've also already posted several for the Traitors Canada, and I'll have a couple more for this episode. Everyone should also make sure to check out the accounts for this podcast overall, which of course is mostly Matthew taking care of them. You can find us on Instagram at the Traitors Podcast and on Twitter as at the Traitors Pod. These are in addition to the ones that he already mentioned for himself. You can also email the Traitors Podcast at gmail.com. And as I mentioned before, if you'd like to help the podcast, go to ko-fi.com, which I guess is coffee, but it's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. Do you have any other closing thoughts?
I am looking for, although I won't be on the podcast every time, I will be watching the rest of the season. I'll be following along, obviously listening to this podcast religiously. And I will be back eventually, which I'm very excited about.
Yes, me too. Looking forward to that. It'll be a little while, and who knows when you might pop up. In the meantime, I'll be back here in a week with another guest. Hope everybody tunes in, and feel free to reach out through social media in the meantime. Bye.
Bye-bye.